Hey everybody, I am honored to be asked to keynote the 2021 convention, and here we are virtually. And I have stood up. I've given a lot of keynote addresses and trainings over Zoom at my desk, but I told the VLTA staff that I wanted to stand for this one in honor of all of you. And I just want to thank the VLTA staff and the leaders in the entire title community for their leadership through uncharted waters the last year and a half. I wanted to congratulate Stephanie Campbell as she takes the important role of president of the VLTA and leads with value, veracity, and vision. And I hope all of us will partner with the VLTA in ways like never before to carry this vision forward. I want to say thank you to each of you. Why? Because I see you. All of the hard work behind the scenes, the challenges you've faced professionally and personally and have overcome over this last year and a half, they've been unprecedented. And I just want to say you are seen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. And thank you for going the often unnoticed second mile. Today, I want to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And I've entitled it Building a Culture that Brings Out the Best in People. Culture, what does that word mean? Watching the Olympics with the kids, seeing all the different flags, all the different countries, and having grown up overseas in Germany for 18 years, I think about different cultures. I think about things we see outside of our own country perhaps, and things we idolize, things we want to bring back, ideas that travel. Culture, I believe, is something that we have the opportunity to create, also to change, sometimes harder to do, but definitely to influence. And so whether you're the CEO, title examiner, underwriter, producer, or policy typist, or you're the assistant or even the intern, I want you to know that you and I can influence culture because we are a leader. We've heard the John Quincy Adams quote many, many times. He says, if our actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, we are leaders. So today I want to challenge everybody from the CEO to the assistant that we can build a culture that brings out the best in our team, in others, in people. How do we do this? And why should we do this? Well, the importance of culture cannot be understated. The expert leadership and management consultant Peter Drucker, he once said this. He said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Now, he was not downplaying strategy, but he was lifting up the paramount importance of our culture. And you may be an owner-operator listening today. You may be a CEO of 100 employees. I know in the title industry, it ranges all the way across the spectrum. But I want you to know that the culture we bring to the table with our real estate agent, with our loan officers, with the consumer, our culture is exhibited in one person or 100. And I believe all of us have the opportunity to influence. So why culture? Well, take, for example, Charles Schwab. Now, Charles Schwab was the first person in recorded history to earn $1 million in a year. This is back in the early 1900s. So back then, it would be equivalent to several multi-million dollars in a year today. But he went to work for Andrew Carnegie in the steel industry. And Andrew Carnegie said of Charles Schwab, he said, it's not his knowledge of the steel industry and manufacturing that's raised him to the level of significance of earning this amount. He was responsible for all the people within this organization of Andrew Carnegie's. But Andrew Carnegie said it was his ability to arouse enthusiasm among the workers. That was his greatest asset. That's how his earning potential went way through the roof. So the importance of culture. Why of culture? Because if we can arouse enthusiasm in our coworkers, in our colleagues, in those we lead, then we have just unlocked their heart to bring their greatest potential to the workplace and truly build out a culture that brings the best out of them. I believe that the urgency of culture right now, today, has never been greater. See, there's a poll that came out from Indeed, and they were sharing that 52% of all workers, it's not just the title industry, although I think our industry may have a higher percentage after the refinance boom we've been through, but 52% of all workers are feeling burned out, and that's up 9% from a pre-pandemic survey. So the urgency of our culture and taking time to invest and to build a culture that lasts is imperative. I believe it is up to all of us. Culture is a team sport. You see the teams compete in the Olympics, and it is the team. It is on the backs of the team that the culture rises or falls. And I love what John Gordon said in his book, The Power of a Positive Team. He said, leaders set the tone and decide what the values and the company is going to stand for, but it's important to note that your culture is brought to life and created by everyone on your team. But as much as it is all of us, I believe that it is up to each of us to step up to the plate. Tennis coach for the UVA men's tennis team, Brian Boland, from 2001 to 2013, got his team to the semifinals, one of the finals, and usually could get up there to the playoff games, but could not win a championship. In 2013, everything changed. They won a championship and then 4 consecutive championships. When Boland was asked what happened, he said this. He said, "We changed." Then he stopped and said, "I changed." He said, "I was a hard driver. I was all about the outcome. I never said it, but the guys knew it." In 2013, I made culture our focus, and the team became about culture and process. They started focusing on culture and process instead of the outcome. And when they did that, they went to win 4 consecutive championships. So as we talk about culture, how do we build a great culture that brings out the best in our people? I believe there's 6 points to this, and many, many more, but today, 6 points that I think will be impactful, and I trust we can all remember, and we've linked them together in an acronym that spells LISTEN. LISTEN, L-I-S-T-E-N. The first one, L, I believe is look. It takes us stopping to look. First of all, to look up, because I think for a long time we've had to put our heads down to just get the massive amount of work done. But right now we're implored to look up, to look around us, to look for the people in our organization who are ready to rise to a leadership role, to look for those who have maybe been overlooked. I love the Og Mandino quote that says, "Opportunities many times are so small that we glimpse them not, and yet they are often the seeds of great enterprises." What is something that we may be overlooking right now within our organization that is the key to unlock something great? Who is it that maybe we are overlooking as a leader? Or maybe one of our colleagues is about on the brink of burnout, and it just needs us looking up, recognizing them. Remember, it's up to each of us, but it's on the shoulders of all of us to build a winning culture. I think we have to ask ourselves, who are we looking at? Too often in our industry and others, we're looking at somebody who's looking at as an overnight success, and we're trying to replicate and do exactly what someone else is doing, and we're not taking stock of where we are in our community and the good we can do for people in our team, and we're racing to success instead of stopping long enough to ask ourselves, what kind of an organization do I want long term? Do we want long term? What kind of organization can we build together long term? And maybe, yes, taking the pace a little slower, and in this industry, it's wise to do so, to slow down, to get accuracy before speed. But in that, we get the opportunity to look at where we're actually heading. Is it to compete because we're comparing with somebody? Or is it because we're going to create something amazing, a company that can change lives and change our community and do a great job in the title industry? Where are we looking? Somebody said we go the way we look. The other thing is we're asked to evolve right now, to innovate, to think differently. The pandemic's forced us to do that. So as we look to the future, I love what Alexander Graham Bell said. He said, sometimes we stare so long at the so long at the door that is closing in front of us, we fail to see the one that is opening. So instead of staring at the door, maybe that's closing, have we asked ourselves, where do I need to be looking now to see where can I evolve my team, my company, our culture? Where can we go together? L is for look. I is twofold. It's identify and inspire. Identify and inspire. I'll share a quick story. I was a teenager going through a really rough time. Our family was in turmoil. Things were kind of breaking apart, and I was a 15-year-old teenager right in the midst of a hard time. And I'll never forget my 19-year-old brother. We had a horse farm. We grew up on a farm. We made hay and we had raised horses. And I'll never forget my brother. He noticed something. He noticed something in me. He noticed that look. I started being disrespectful to some of my siblings. I started to become short, became impatient, and anger was boiling up inside. And I'll never forget, he came home from work one day and he looked me right in the eye. He said, Tim, and these two words changed my life: saddle up. Now, when he said saddle up, when our older sibling said saddle up, it meant we were going for a ride. But we loved riding horses. But this day was different. He said saddle up, and it was a seriousness in his voice. As a 19-year-old with a dad that was absent in my life, my 19-year-old brother stepped in, and he said, saddle up. We saddled up, and I'll never forget, we rode for 20 minutes, and we rode hard. The horses were lathered up. We stopped to let them graze. We were overlooking this German farm with a waterfall going down. And he looked over at me. He says, what's going on? I didn't want to talk right at first. I had stuffed so much down, and I did not want to open up to my brother. And there were some deep, tough, hard conversations, topics to talk about. But he said, Tim, what's going on? You're not okay. Do you know that day he identified in me strengths and weaknesses, but he identified, he spoke over me, he spoke vision over me that day. I'll never forget that day. He changed my life. My question to us as leaders, as team members is, have we taken the time to identify the strengths and possibly the weaknesses in our team as a team? Do we have any sort of consistency or roundtable or group events or things we can do to enhance our culture? Are we getting to know each other? You think about these elite SEAL teams and how much they train together, day in, day out, training together to perform one mission. Sometimes we've been mission heavy, and we need to come back to identifying and nurturing the strengths within each other, and then inspiring those strengths, identifying and inspiring. You know, my brother to this day texts me. We text each other back and forth. It is a back and forth inspiration now. But that day he identified strengths, and to this day, he's been a constant source of inspiration in my life. As we've talked about workforce development and mentorship, two amazing initiatives over the last couple of years as the VLTA, I'm thinking about this. Who is our one? Who is that person that we can go to and say, hey, you're new to this industry. I want you to know you can call me if ever you need anything. I'm a phone call away. I see this, this, and this in you. I see you going places. Listen, some people coming into a new industry, they may look like they have it all together, but inside they are doubting themselves every time they turn around. And especially in an industry that is very, very heavy on accuracy and the proper examination and conveyance of property, everything that goes into this, it can be overwhelming. So who is our one? Who knows they can call you when they have a question or when they are completely overwhelmed and just need to vent. Who is our one? Who have we identified as our one? Who have we identified? What strengths have we identified in them? And are we inspiring them to their greatest potential? Who on our team are we inspiring every day? I love the next one is S for Synergize. I think you have to look and you have to identify and inspire before we can really grasp the synergy that happens when these habits start happening. The synergy that happens, where I love the German word Gestalt, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And we realize, like Simon Sinek says, bad teams work in the same place, but good teams, great teams, work together. Do we just work in the same place, albeit that may be a hybrid or somewhat virtual these days, or do we truly work together? I love the analogy when we think about synergy of recognizing that it requires us to let go of ego, of the superhero syndrome that happens to say, I can do it on my own, when really that's a myth. None of us really can. And when our people start feeling that they're not just good for tasks, they're not just good for certain procedures, but they're also good for their differences, their perspectives, their experiences. When they start feeling valued, this is when synergy starts truly happening, where you bounce ideas off a collaborative force internally just because you welcome the other opinions, the different opinions, and we're humble enough to submit to each other, to submit an idea and to take an idea, and we truly begin to synergize. Do our people feel that they're part of that collaborative effort, or do they feel that they're just worker bees typing away at title policies? I love what Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. I want to challenge us as we think about past our organization. What are some of the charities our people are involved in? What are some of the things that matter to them? Could we synergize as an organization, as a company, with our people, with some of the things that matter to them? I see the posts on social media and I celebrate with so many of our title agents across the Commonwealth who do this very thing. How could we do more in the days ahead of synergizing with our people? So we have L, we have I, we have S. T comes next. T is for training, but it also is for time. Training and time, because they go together. I coach a lot of agents and they tell me we want to do a better job training. The problem is, where is the time? Where do we have the time? Are we making the time? I love the story of the great legendary coach, John Wooden. He said it like this in a TED talk he did. He referenced a poem that he had heard from 1930. And in his TED talk, he shared the poem because he said that it changed his entire coaching mindset. It goes like this: no written word, no spoken plea can teach our youth what they could be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's what the teachers are themselves. So before we talk about training and setting up rhythms and consistencies, think about our life and our character first. Whether you're the assistant or whether you're the CEO today, are you investing in so that you can impact out? Are you showing up true, committed, loving, grateful to your team members, to your colleagues? Because that is the greatest training that will ever take place. We talk about software training, we talk about title training, we talk about all the important hard skills of the industry, and they are so important. But similar to Peter Drucker talking about culture eating strategy for breakfast, he was not putting down strategy, but he was raising up culture. Today, I want to encourage all of us to raise up the soft skills that we need for this industry, that the young people coming in to our organizations need, that the millennials and the next generation, Gen Z and on, will need those soft skills, those leadership skills, those customer service skills to succeed in business. So have we set the time aside to train, to invest in the training of the next generation? I have a quick story. When I first started in the workforce at 18, I was a non-traditional student in college, but I only went back to college because when I graduated from a blue-collar family, graduated high school, I didn't think I needed college. Dad and mom said you didn't need college. Just go work hard. But I had a boss who believed in me, and he said, Tim, read this book. He gave me this book right here, Linchpin by Seth Godin. And I hold it up today, not necessarily holding this up as the paramount book, although it's a great read and I love Seth Godin. But this one book I ate. I literally absorbed it. I just ate it up. And this one book inspired something deeply inside of me to start growing as an individual, past the professional development, past the hard skills of what I was doing, my job. It made me want to come home and be a better husband at that time, and then become a better dad and a better community member and a better whatever the role. Have we set aside the time? Have we invested? I don't know how much he paid for this book. It was a used book on Amazon, maybe $9.99. I don't know. But that little investment, I'm the recipient, made a big difference in my life. What can we do for our teams to invest in them? And are we helping them carve out the time for training? Some people run up all the way to the end of the year only to have to rush to get their CEs done. As organizational leaders, how can we do a better job to carve out the time to help our employees and our team members know that training is important? Training is a must because it is an investment in them and something no one can take away from them. Have we set the time apart? Tony Robbins says it like this: it's not what we do on a once in a while basis that changes our life, but it's what we do consistently that changes our life. Do we have mentorship in place within our organization, systems, once a month meeting, roundtable, lunch and learn? What do we have on a consistent basis to educate, to empower our team? T is for training. We have E. E is for empathize. I believe right now, more than ever before, we have a calling to empathize with our team members, with our communities, and with other colleagues around the industry like never before. We did some resource calls right when the pandemic hit, and one of the things that made my heart swell up inside was seeing title agents who are truly competitors share ideas and strategies and come together like never before to get through a common enemy of COVID-19, to set up standards and procedures and emergency orders even to get the job done for the consumer. And when we come together with empathy, why? Because we all faced the same thing. For the first time in most of our lives, we could say to somebody across the world in China or Japan or Russia that we know what they're going through because the entire world faced it. Think about that. The gift that empathy has always been, but the highlighter that has been circled around this gift of empathy right now. You think about the social unrest, you think about the mental illness that is happening, some of the post-traumatic stress that will come out of the pandemic. Think about the calling we have to empathize with our teams, with our colleagues, and not only from the top to the bottom. Remember, the culture is on all of our shoulders, but even from the bottom to the top. Maybe your CEO has been under more stress than she or he has ever experienced in business. It is our calling from the most entry level to empathize with the leadership as much as it is the calling of leadership to empathize with the most entry level. Empathy, I think, starts with an understanding. I love what Joe Medina said. He said, empathy works so well because it doesn't require a solution. It simply requires our understanding. Now, we may work towards a solution, but empathy simply means I see you, I understand. And even if you're not going through the exact same situation, although I use the global pandemic as a fine example, there are things that we can empathize with. I've never been able to empathize with cancer with some of my buddies whose wives or close, maybe a sister has faced. My sister faced cancer. I was really, really young. I don't remember that entire journey or process. But right after the pandemic hit, a month later, my wife got the news that she had breast cancer. Took us into a whole different viewpoint of the pandemic and handling something like this on top. But I will tell you something that changed my life and set me on a journey of writing a book right now called Empathetic Urgency, called The Smallest Antidote to the World's Biggest Problems. Let me tell you this quick story. I got a phone call. I was on a Zoom similar to this. I'm speaking to a host of title agents, and I get a phone call. I had a lot going on. I had just flipped about 25 speaking engagements from in-person, now trying to handle virtual. And then on top of this, the news coming with my wife and changing things and coordinating childcare and everything else, and just a lot going on. Not unsimilar to many of you listening, a lot going on. I get a phone call. It was from a software provider. The last person I wanted to talk to, honestly, no offense to our wonderful software providers, but I just one extra thing in my day. And I'll never forget, I looked at the phone, and right at first when it rang in, I knew of an agent we were working on together to install some software. And so I thought, oh, I need to get back to her. It went into the back of my mind, and it became a little bit of a burden in my growing to-do list. And I'll never forget that night, up in bed, I was wrapping up for the day, and I was going back through some of the missed calls, some of the voicemails, and I was texting some people, hey, day got away from me, I'll call you in the morning. And I saw her voicemail. It was a 10-second voicemail. I was like, oh, it's not a 2-minute voicemail. I can listen to this real quick. And in 10 minutes, I had some of the strongest emotions, so much gratitude well up in my heart, and tears come to my eyes as I listened. And she says, hey, Tim, I heard the news. I'm not calling for any other reason, just to tell you that you're in our thoughts and prayers. If you need anything, you have my cell phone. Please reach out. 10 seconds. After a long day, I became very emotional, and I teared up just thinking that one little voicemail, 10 seconds, could change so much inside of me. The burden somehow just rolled off. I felt in that moment of a lot of pressure that there, if nothing else, there's one person, and I knew there were hundreds of people who cared, but at that one moment, I felt like somebody cares, somebody sees. Can we empathize with our teams? Can we seek to understand, like Stephen Covey says, before seeking to be understood? Are we empathizing? Do we see the urgency behind our empathy? And then as we come to the last point in this acronym of listen, it's simply to notice. Now we can look all around, we can get great vision, we can look where we need to go as a company, we can look at our people, but then do we notice what they're doing? Do we notice the behind the scenes? I have a quick example. If I hold my screen up to the camera, hopefully you can see that. Do you notice that? And I think everybody saw the blue dot on my hand that I put intentionally there, oftentimes not intentionally as I'm signing something and put blue ink myself. But we notice, right? Because this little blue dot is out of place. Oftentimes in our life, and this happens with kids, this happens with family, this happens with coworkers, we notice. And in this industry, I'm glad we do notice the things that are out of place. If it's wrong, we want to fix it. It's imperative we do. We want to convey property properly. So we are trained, we have trained eyes to notice the things that are off. But on my hand, there's 98% of my hand that's not off, but our eye is drawn to the thing that's out of place. So as we wrap up to talk about noticing, do I notice my my child's bad behavior more than I notice their good behavior. See, good behavior is often when they're quiet. It often goes unnoticed. Do I put them on notice for their good behavior? Do I highlight that to them? Do I take time to recognize my employees, my colleagues who did an outstanding job? Do I have some way internally, some system built for communicating wins, successes, celebrations? What am I doing as a leader? What am I doing as an employee to celebrate, to notice, to champion for somebody internally, saying, I notice you? I talked about my boss. I keep this laminated. He would go on vacation. I worked here for 10 years, by the way, before I started my own company and then partnered with WFG. But I worked here 10 years, and whenever he went on vacation, he would take time in his travels to sit and write a handwritten note. And not that I didn't get several from him, but this one, he took the time to write something very specific about the core value that I was living out within the organization. And I laminated it. Of course, I take this around and show it to teams that I work with and coach, but it was simply his time that he took to notice what I was doing specifically around passion, around the core value of passion. You know, that spoke volumes to me, because it wasn't just, hey, great job. It was specific. He noticed something very specific that I did. And I want to encourage you to take the time to notice. Use your people's names. If they go by a nickname, I love using nicknames. I think our teams can be more like family, especially post-pandemic. And I think that it's imperative that we start noticing the people who have worked so hard, and they've worked and they've showed up and they've gone the second mile for us. Maybe one of your clients, they come in and everything is always together. Have we recognized them? Maybe whatever it is, somebody, some vendor, some appraiser, somebody gets their stuff done and they deliver it to us. And we simply can, if we're not careful, take that for granted. Have we taken the time to notice? So we've talked about look, we've talked about identifying and inspiring. We've talked about synergizing. Then we've talked about training and making the time to train. We've talked about empathizing and then noticing. What does all this do? All of this builds a culture that not only thrives internally, but it turns the frequency up and attracts. It attracts people to your culture. So as we look to grow this industry, as we look to the future together, I just ask all of us to listen. Listen to our employees. A Salesforce survey, 1,500 people were surveyed. And they said the number one thing that people said was paramount to their performance was the knowledge, the feeling of being heard by their employer or by somebody, some manager, somebody on their team. So as we start listening to our team, to our colleagues, to our community, I believe we're going to have a culture that brings out the best in people. Thank you so very much for listening. Thank you for participating in the VLTA Convention 2021. I look forward to seeing you all around the industry. Take care, everybody.
Welcome, everyone, to Day 2 of the Virginia Land Title Association 2021 Annual Convention. We have an incredible lineup of educational sessions for you today. I hope you're ready. Also, the PAC silent auction is still happening, so be sure to check it out. There are some really great things featured and certainly something for everyone. Wow, what an incredibly powerful and thought-provoking keynote address. Yesterday, I talked about the importance of expanding our commitment to a sustainable and strong industry workforce. I asked you to share your experience and passion with someone new in the industry and to consider investing in someone who may not have otherwise considered title and settlement a career path. I pointed out that value, veracity, and vision are vital to making that happen. Tim took that message further by challenging us to create a culture within our businesses and organizations that would attract people and keep them here. He gave us the acronym LISTEN and pointed out that positive culture and process will bring out the best in people. Opportunity is not always distributed evenly. We need to change this. We need to focus on creating opportunities that attract new professionals, but more importantly, we need to focus on creating opportunities for those who are already working in our industry. I believe this is vital to the sustainability of our industry. Oliver Wendell Holmes said it best: a mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions. I said it yesterday and I'll say it again. I can make a difference. You can make a difference. We can make a difference. You just have to want to make a difference. Embrace your value, spotlight your veracity, expand your vision, and invest in your industry. This is who you are. This is who we are. This is VLTA.